Sandie Gascon, welcome to Women's Wellness Radio.
Thanks for having me, Bridget.
I am excited to have you. I think we have a very similar view on health. It'll be fun. We're both functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. I know you also studied massage and you studied biomedicine. You want to tell us a little bit more about your training, and then maybe we can go deeper into your own health history and how you worked on your own health.
Yeah, so I was a massage therapist before I got into functional diagnostic nutrition. I also have a bachelor in biomedicine. So that's the training, and I thought it was great that we were both functional FDN practitioners. It's like, yay! FDN is awesome.
Totally. Yeah, and so let's go back in time a little bit. You suffered with lupus, migraine headaches, depression, insomnia. I know you said you had acne and you had gained weight. So when did this all start? How did it progress? Did you know anything about health like as a child?
No. No, we were not a very healthy family. Money was pretty scarce, and my parents, I was a very bold child, and they would allow me to eat dinner at the store where I would go purchase those bags of penny candies. And I literally lived off of sugar. And my first migraine happened when I was 7. I still remember the day. I will never forget that moment. I can smell everything that happened that day. And it's just so vivid, the pain. Try to explain to a 7-year-old what's happening when their head feels like they're just going to explode. And so the first migraine happened when I was 7, and they just progressed and got worse. By the time I was about 13, I wasn't sleeping at all. And I was going through periods of being completely manic when there was no migraine. And then when the migraines would hit, I would be missing school, spending time in bed, in my room, the lights off. And all I would really want to eat was dill pickle chips. It was the one thing that I could keep down in the stomach. And that continued. The doctors did try me on a bunch of different medications in my teens. And at one time I even was on meloxicam for my knees because I had severe knee pain to the point where I just couldn't walk at times. And
what's meloxicam? I can't remember what that is.
It's a medication that actually went off the market for a while because they deemed it unsafe, and then somehow came back onto the market. It's a general anti-inflammatory type thing.
Okay, potent.
Yeah, and really to be putting a teenager on it, it's kind of now just boggles my mind what they were thinking. In university, the migraines continued, and I was very depressed in my first year of university and went on Effexor. So that really changed a lot. I went from being very active and go to kind of zombie-ish, where I was perfectly content to not do a lot, but the migraines did tone down. I was able to tolerate a lot more scents. The migraines would come and they would be okay. I could live with them. It wouldn't put me in bed for days. And that continued for a good 5 years. And I decided I wasn't going to become a doctor. That was my original plan. Be a doctor, figure out a cure for migraines. But when I was put on Effexor and tried to go off of it, I really started not liking medication. That's putting it very lightly. I had a strong view on it. I thought the medication was evil, and the fact that a doctor could give me that medication and I had no way to get off of it because I felt like a zombie all the time. And it got to a point where I kind of just wanted some emotions back, even if it meant having a migraine every once in a while, because I felt nothing. I was very numb. And that was all well and good until you try to go off of it and you get really bad withdrawals, horrendous withdrawals, and they don't educate you. Back then when I was going off of it, there wasn't as much information on the internet, on forums, on how to safely get off medication while minimizing your side effects. So it was a struggle. I decided to not go into medicine, and I went and became a massage therapist. And in my
Hold on one second. So did you give up on medicine just because you felt like it was letting you down so much, or what, are you tired or what?
I felt like it was letting me down, but I felt the medications themselves, the side effects, the, trying to get off of them, the rebound effects, the withdrawals. I had also been seeing what my mom was going through on a lot of medication from her psychiatrist. And it was not something that I could ever tell somebody to take.
Okay.
And I couldn't be a doctor and be like, take this medication. For my conscience would never, ever work. So I went into massage therapy. It's a 3-year program here in Ontario, Canada. And in my last year, right before my exams, I got really bad food poisoning. They actually thought I had meningitis because my fever was so high. I was in excruciating pain. I ended up in the ER, ended up having a lumbar puncture. It turned out it was just Campylobacter in a very high quantity. And everything went downhill from there. I started having severe pain in my spine from the lumbar puncture. My left leg was almost paralyzed. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't even get up on my horse. I had to learn how to mount my horse from the other side because I couldn't lift myself up. I lost a bunch of weight, and from then on, my health just started to decline. The effects stopped working altogether. So I was on this med that I couldn't get off, that wasn't doing anything, and I kept trying to go off of it to at least get it out of my system. And I was introduced to more of a natural approach at that time, and I wanted it gone, but I couldn't get off of it. And my symptoms just kept getting worse. I started to become incredibly fatigued. I ended up having pain in my hands, and then it would be in my feet, and then in my jaw, and all this pain came. I ended up going for an MRI that year, which now we know with gadolinium toxicity that probably added to everything that was going on in my gut from the food poisoning. And literally a year and a month after the food poisoning, I was diagnosed with lupus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that food poisoning was definitely a trigger. Plus,
totally.
Maybe I'm just kind of curious because we're both functional medicine nerds. Like, as you look back on your life, what were the various triggers for you?
Well, I really, I think there's triggers, but I think I've come to look at the body as almost like being a bank account. We're born with a certain amount of money. And when we use up that reserve, then illness starts to happen. And I think from a young age, vaccinations, very, very poor diet, not breastfed, a lot of stress in the family, a lot of mental, emotional stress growing up. And then continuing that on through, high school with a lot of drinking and then stress. I was raising my sister's daughter also throughout that period. So just more stress, and then the medication, the food poisoning. I used to joke around all the time that I wouldn't eat salads because salads were for rabbits and I wasn't a rabbit. So vegetables were not on my list of things that I ever ate. It was meat, potatoes, and that was, a staple, but more so the staple in my life was sugar. It was candy. It was white breads and bagels and pizzas and boxes and processed food. So it's just, I think we eventually keep draining our body. And yeah, the food poisoning definitely was a trigger. I think I was very emotionally and mentally stressed with everything that I was dealing with in my life. Besides that, and then now we know, okay, the gadolinium would have been another notch on top of that, the medication. So it was a lot.
From the MRI, or that's from the medication? I don't know.
The MRI, yeah, I had a test.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this gadolinium. You want to explain that a little more?
Yeah, so gadolinium is one of the contrast dyes, and there's this huge movement right now to get it removed. It's not going to happen, in my opinion, but there's a lot of people after an MRI that even though their kidney function is good and the body should be detoxing it, we're seeing high levels of gadolinium in urine tests afterwards. And a lot of people, they go into an MRI, they might, just be in pain in one joint, or they have an injury, and they end up having a lot of symptoms of heavy metal toxicity, pain, aches, fatigue. And Chuck Norris's wife is actually a big promoter of the gadolinium movement.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah.
So gadolinium is in fact a heavy metal or toxic metal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know. I've never had an MRI, and I'm just, for some reason, that's never come up in conversation. So really good to know. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
And I think I don't think focusing on one triggering event, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Why did this happen? How did this happen? Well, it just happened. And now everything spiraled, out of control. I was completely in metabolic chaos, and it was just moving forward. And for me, the biggest thing after that lupus diagnosis was I tried to go to work for the next year, and I tried to do everything, but I ended up just progressively getting worse, even though I was really, really strict with my diet. I had went more so raw vegan, which helped for a period of time, but then I just got more and more sensitive to foods. And I ended up a year after the lupus diagnosis, just quitting. I gave up completely, and I sold everything and moved into my parents' basement. And it was a year of not good mental health for me.
Oh, wow. So had you started working as a massage therapist, or you're still in school when all these things were going on?
I was in school when the food poisoning came, and I did go to work. So it was almost a year and a half period where I was working.
Okay. So now you're in your parents' basement, which is always like the big symbol of, right? The low point.
Oh, the low point. Yeah. Well, it was nice. Like we redid the basement. Nice.
Nice basement. But I feel like always with the parent basement story, you do get out of the basement, luckily.
Well, some people don't, but
some people might not. But the people we hear about who make it out and come on podcasts.
Like digging yourself out of the basement.
Yeah, it's very symbolic. It's become quite this thing. So what did you started doing this vegan diet, experimenting and this kind of thing. Tell us more about kind of like your trial and error, what resources you were tapping into, because you hadn't gone to functional diagnostic nutrition yet. Okay.
No, I hadn't got there. So that first year was me being in a pity party. Why did this happen to me? I've always tried to be so good and do so much good and help so many people. And then this happened to me. And I spent almost a year in that place, still working on my diet, but mentally I was not there. And I was seeing a psychiatrist for almost 6 months, which for a long time I couldn't even admit that. It was really hard. Because my mom had suffered from a lot of mental health issues. I had this thing where I did not want to be like my mother. And here I was on disability, not able to work, not able to take care of myself. And I was going through that. I'm turning into my mother. And I love my mother. We get along really, really good. But at that point in my life, that is where I was in my emotional and spiritual development. And there was a lot of blame and on everybody else but myself. Like, there was no blame on me. And I spent that year in that pity party. And it was actually the big pivotal moment was listening to a podcast, which is why I love podcasts so much, is I was listening to Sean Stevenson's podcast, and he did one on how to stop a disease diagnosis from killing you. And that's where I was like this. I had lupus. The doctors had said, if you don't go on medication, you're going to be dead in 10 years. And I'm like, I'm not doing any medication. That was 100% from the beginning. And there was a lot of fear that I was going to die, even though I was trying to stay positive with the diet, which wasn't working. And I found this podcast, and he was my first insight into changing the way I was thinking and taking responsibility for my life. And that I was an adult. I chose to put those foods in my body. I chose to not make any changes. I chose to stay ignorant on it. And that was a big pivotal moment for me. And he introduced me to functional diagnostic nutrition, though at the time on disability, it was not something I could afford to take or do. But I started asking myself, okay, why is it that other people can eat food and not be sick? Why is it that when I'm eating anything at that point, anything would flare me? I was probably eating 5 different foods, and why can other people eat it? So that question got everything stirring for me to go and start researching the gut and the adrenals and sex hormones and neurotransmitters, and really branching out into looking at it at a deeper perspective, instead of just looking at it as I was in a toxic environment and trying to live in a bubble, because that's what I was trying to do. I thought if I cut out all the toxins, if I cut out everything from food, everything from my lifestyle, went all natural, no toxins, that I should get better. And I didn't. So it led me to dig deeper into these other systems in the body. And that's when the trial and error started. I would, read about different gut cleanses and do a gut cleanse, or I would read about adrenals and start doing adrenal cocktails, right? And it was just trying various things one after the other, and I became a guinea pig.
I love that you're telling the story, because I think it's so true of the clients that come to us. They've usually already done a dietary approach, which sounds like you kind of did first, and then you were doing detoxing, which, taking out toxins out of your environment, which I think a lot of our listeners are trying to too. It's hard to be perfect in that category, but they're trying to use natural soap and, that kind of a thing. And then, they're hearing about the adrenals or, leaky gut, and they're, okay, maybe I'll try this adrenal adaptogen, or I'll try this gut cleanse, like you said. So tell us, did anything useful come out of the trial and error, or like what do you think it was?
Well, totally. I think everything is useful.
Okay.
Like, there was a time where I thought the lupus diagnosis was the end of the world. And now I'm like, yes, I'm so thankful I got lupus, because it changed my whole life, right? But the biggest thing that trial and error did help when I was researching is I did find amino acid therapy. And that enabled me to get off the Effexor and heal my migraines. So that was the first victory that I had, was getting off the Effexor and being migraine free and balancing my brain so that I wasn't constantly in this manic depressive state that it plagues my entire family on my mother's side. And so being able to do that, I was like, wow, I am really onto something. If I could get this done, if I could fix this, I can do anything. I've got this. I will be free from lupus. And it was such a belief in me that I was going to clear those lupus markers from my blood work, and that I would go to the doctor and the doctor would be, you are in remission, and I would do it. And I did. And I think a lot of, working on the gut, and I think diet and removing toxins is a part of the picture. It's just not the entire picture.
Yeah, I don't want to knock it, because it's like foundational. You can't skip it. And there are some people who that kind of is all they'll need, because I guess I'm speaking more specifically to the what we've seemed to have attracted in this community and in our program, which is the people who are already trying all those things. And
it's not working.
It's not working. Yeah. So the Effexor, is that an SSRI? Like a... Yeah.
Okay. It is an SSRI.
So that somehow was able to keep the migraines at bay.
So the SSRI would have been lifting my serotonin enough. So it's just, the SSRI will keep serotonin from being broken down. It's not helping you make more, but eventually when your body just tanks and stops making it, it stops working. And we see that a lot with any of the antidepressants. They might work a little bit in the beginning, but then over time they lose their efficiency. And when I found the amino acid therapy, it opened my eyes into, one, I was missing a lot of cofactors to make my enzymes function. And I was also needing those high doses of 5-HTP or DLPA to get my serotonin and my dopamine levels up. And it was finding the balance between the two. Everybody has a different balance, and it's getting used to knowing your body and what your body is saying and being able to say, okay, I need this today. And it was a process, but I opened up those effectors and I counted the 454 beads, and I took 2 beads out every single day. And
Wow.
it was a process. It was a long process to get off of it. I didn't find the amino acid therapy until I was probably at about 35 milligrams, because I started out on 300 milligrams of effexor, which is a pretty high dose. And I found the amino acid therapy when I was pretty well done, almost off. But it really, really helped me with that last bit of withdrawals, because when you get close to the end, you really start feeling the brain zapping and the out-of-body experiences.
Oh, wow.
It's horrendous. And the doctors at that time would not acknowledge it. They would not acknowledge that the effexor withdrawals were causing the symptoms.
Oh, wow.
So it was a battle, but I have been migraine free now for over 4.5 years.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great. So in your case, I'm just curious about this little detail too. So in your case, you were getting migraines. One factor was that the serotonin was unstable or too low, and just keeping it kind of flatlined kept the migraines at bay for you. Okay. And then when you found amino acid therapy and what helped naturally build dopamine and serotonin and balance those levels with each other, that helped you stay more stable for migraines and probably for your mood as well, right?
Oh, yeah. And the mood was a big thing. And I was doing other amino acids besides just the ones to boost the neurotransmitters. And that really worked a lot on my liver, which helped with the chemical sensitivities that I was having and that were triggering the migraines. So those are gone. Like, I have no problem at all anymore with scents. I have no problem, cigarette smoke, that kind of thing. It doesn't trigger migraines. It doesn't make me sick anymore. And with all the work that I've done since then, after finding FTN, I've even went from having severe motion sickness in cars and planes and boats, and anytime anything moves, to that being gone. Like, now I'm able to go on a plane ride without having to take any Dramamine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I used to have a client with that really severely, but I had never studied amino acid therapy. So, oops, now I know. That's really interesting. So at what point did you study FDN? Or I know you were studying amino acid therapy. Did you actually get tested for them, or we just?
No, that was all trial and error. So
sometimes
there are times that it works, but I was working through all of my symptoms, and by that time, my lupus I did get the free and clear from the doctor, and I still had really, really terrible acne. Like, it was horrendous, all over my face, all over my back, and I wanted it gone. Like, I still looked not healthy. And that's when I, went back to the trial and error board, and I was working on my sex hormones at the time and taking a bunch of DIM and indole 3-carbinol, and I was doing calcium glucarate, thinking, okay, I was estrogen dominant. I was sure of that. So I took all these supplements, and all of a sudden I ended up with interstitial cystitis.
Oh.
I had lowered my estrogen too low. I didn't test. I was still not into functional diagnostic nutrition at that time. So I ended up beating lupus, beating migraines, getting interstitial cystitis. It was the worst.
Can you explain what that is for people who don't know?
Oh, so it feels like you have the worst bladder infection of your life all the time. It's bladder spasms, pain, burning when you're peeing, fullness, frequency. It was horrendous. It made all the other things that I went through look like a piece of cake, and it was constant, never ending. So I took all these steps forward, and with the trial and error, I ended up taking so many steps backwards. And I tried for 1 more year to get rid of the interstitial cystitis with trial and error. And it's basically you're having ulcers inside the bladder. So your bladder lining has worn away, and it's incredibly excruciating. So after a year, I said, okay, I've had enough. And I had gotten back to work, and I had went into back into massage therapy. I got my license back, and I worked through that entire year with that bladder pain every 5 minutes, thinking about, oh my goodness, like I'm looking at my watch. Back then I wore a watch, and I'm like, when can I pee? I just have to pee. How many more minutes do I have left of this massage? And that whole year was spent focused on where's the next toilet. And after the year, I said, enough is enough. I need to make the investment into FDN. I had known about it now for 3 years. It was something that I knew I wanted to eventually do, but it was a financial issue to spend that much more money on more education, which I had quite a bit of student loans after 7 years of post-secondary education. So it was taking that plunge and being able to go and run a Dutch test and be like, oh, wow, I screwed up my hormones. And like being able to see what my adrenals were doing, run an organic acids test, see my oxalate levels, all those things, to be able to say, okay, now I know what's going on. Now I can develop a real plan without guessing. I can see the numbers. I know where the healing opportunities are. And then I started to make very quick progress with the interstitial cystitis.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it sounds like you already had a lot of background knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
You sort of needed the test.
I needed the testing.
Yeah. So you were kind of fixing yourself with an eye towards you wanted to do that as a career?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was always in the future, but I wanted to first, pay off student loans, have some more financial stability before starting another business.
Okay.
Which, when I went into it, I didn't quite realize how much was involved in doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, the myth of online business.
The myth, yes.
So the term root causes gets bounced around, and I earlier said triggers, and you're like, it's not quite that. So wanted you to talk about laying that foundation, which we talked about a bit with diet and toxins, rebuilding the body before you're kind of going after. And I see this with some of my clients too, like they just want to like go after the whatever we find on the lab.
Gut bugs, that's the thing, right? Or Lyme. Let's go after Lyme, right?
Yeah, but they're so weakened from just like you, like years of, over time you were finding more and more solutions, but just the body just getting beat down from so much going on inside of it for so long. So let's talk about that.
Well, and I think, laying the foundations is really big. I think right now, too many people are stuck on, there is one diet that is for them. That for me is, everybody is an individual, and to think that you can follow a cookie cutter diet can cause a lot more damage. Because if you're trying to go ketogenic or even paleo, when you don't burn fat and protein very well, and your body is using carbs for energy, you're going to be causing a lot more stress. And I did that for many years, trying all these diets that were not what my body thrived on. And then finally just being like, okay, I'm just going to do what makes me feel good. And, that's a big thing, because a lot of times people think they're eating healthy, but for them, it's not what they need. I've had people come to me, they think, they're eating all these plant-based products and their oxalates are through the roof. So there's so much to that. But there is this big push. Everybody wants to focus on the root cause without building up the body. And it's basically like sending a soldier to war that is weak and sickly. Like, we would never do that. They put in foundation training, they get stronger. And we need to do that with the body. We need to address neurotransmitter imbalances. We need to address your adrenals, sex hormones, thyroid, liver. You've got to be detoxifying properly. If you're already toxic and you go to war against your gut and your gut starts releasing all these further toxins, where are they going to go? If you're already not clearing the ones that you have. And I really think there's a more of a movement thinking that candida and other pathogens are actually taking on some of our toxin load, the heavy metals and the various toxins. And when we kill them off, they're going to release all that.
That's a good point.
And they have nowhere to go, because your phase 2 liver detoxification might not be functioning whatsoever. So I really think that it's about getting you feeling good first. And what I've found now by working with a lot of clients is that 80-90% of them, most of their symptoms disappear before we even get to the gut work or before we even touch Lyme or mold. They're feeling better just by fixing the imbalances. And then they're strong enough that when we go to the gut work, they're not quitting halfway through because the die-off is too bad. So it's the way that I've been doing it with my clients now and having really good success with it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think you've said a lot of important things there. Yeah, I think it's just sort of well, you're Canadian, but I was going to say our American mentality, our Western, I don't know.
Our Western mentality.
Yeah, it's just like go. And it's the same with like cleansing. Like, I can't tell you how many people ask me over the years, like, yeah, what do you think the master cleanse? And I was like, well,
that's going to cause more stress to the body.
Yeah. And it's just like this quick thing. Like we always want like a quick, like,
quick,
get it hard and get it over with. And it's not really how nature works. You just explained that so eloquently. Like we can't go releasing a lot of toxins if our systems can't support it. And having our systems work optimally lets them start to work on things on their own, which is probably why you find some people don't need to even go to the...
Oh, we still do. We still do. It's like...
the symptoms are a lot less.
The symptoms are a lot lessened, and they're like, I don't need the gut work. And I'm like, yeah, you do. That's why I got you in this package, so that you wouldn't quit when you started to feel better, right? Because you still have to address the issues. Otherwise, it's just going to come back. But I just don't think going after it right away is going to be the best approach.
Yeah. I just had a GI map run a couple of months ago. And there were lots of things on there, but I was like, I can't deal with it right now. I'm about to move. I'm putting on a summit. Like, there's no way I'm going to follow this protocol and like be able to take care of myself. So I'm doing it now. It's quite fine. But yeah, I think it's important to just kind of honor that timing.
Totally. Yeah. I had a client start with me. She had severe mold illness for a long time, had seen a lot of practitioners, and all we did was work on rebuilding the body. And it was to the point where she wanted to go back to work, and she hadn't worked in many years. And it's like, well, if you're going to go back to work and you're just starting this, I don't really think that the gut work right now, let's wait till you get into it and you're relaxed and you're settled in with your job before we start the gut work. Or maybe we'll just tackle one thing first and wait, because when you're throwing these huge protocols at people, or people are doing it on their own, they might be researching it and they're just like, I'm going to take this antiparasitic, I'm going to do this for candida, I'm going to do this for bacteria. They haven't tested anything. They're going to do a biofilm buster and they throw this all at their gut. And we have to remember we're killing good flora. So it's putting a huge stress on the body. You're releasing the toxins. The body has to deal with that. And if you're not prepared for it, you're probably not going to be successful. Whatever you're trying to kill is just going to come back.
Yeah, that can be very true. And I think it's taxing to do, we're just taking a group through our program recently, and I'm just noticing the trends because they all started around the same time. It's stressful there are parts that are exciting, right? Getting tested, kind of exciting, even though it costs money. But then you shell out all this more money for the supplements, and then you're doing them, and you have to remember which ones you take on an empty stomach, which ones you take with food, which ones are you out of. That's very frustrating, and you might be getting some symptoms too. So you really, you've got to be ready for that. It's mostly everyone. Occasionally people are like, I went through it and it was fine, but there's usually some degree of frustration or side effects. So you really, you have to be mentally ready. For that phase. There's no like free ride.
No, it's not easy. Gut work is,
right?
It is very worth it. Gut work is like you're going to war, and it's not gonna feel great. I've had some clients, they start it, they're like a week in, they're like, oh, I don't really feel anything. And then the next week they're like, oh my gosh, like what happened? I'm like, oh, you were just a little delayed.
Yeah. I'm taking something now, and I didn't really know the correct dose because, the bottle is never really correct dose. So when I found out and I bumped up to the correct dose, I had a couple really
like, oh, that's
day.
why.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't
I'm okay again. Yeah. I'm just kind of ranting, but it's just, I think maybe good for people to know, because if they're thinking, well, I want to get my gut test, I want to do something. But if you can have a real sense of like, hey, this is what it's like. It takes a while. It's kind of inconvenient.
For sure. And it really depends on what you find, because some people, I ran a test on a girl a couple months ago, and we were dealing with like blasto, we're dealing with roundworms, we're dealing with SIBO. There's all these things going on in her gut. It's like, well, this might take a couple protocols. Like we might do one protocol, work on blasto, and then you're going to need a break before we try to address anything else, because what we're going to do to try to get rid of that is going to be quite stressful. And going like from one protocol to the next protocol without giving the body a break, you can run into some problems.
Yeah. Do you find too, when you retest, that some things have come back, have like appeared? Yeah. So they're all doing their own little dance and war in there. So sometimes you clear one and another comes up, which again can be frustrating for the client. Yeah, it's just, it would be super duper if we could just take like one little pill and fix our whole gut. Doesn't work.
I just had that conversation with a client last night. They're like, oh, it would just be so nice if somebody invented a pill that would just fix us. And like, well, this is what would happen. Somebody would invent the pill, the FDA would buy the pill, and that person who invented it would be a billionaire, and then we would never see that pill again.
Oh gosh.
That's how I totally see it. But
I think it goes back to that same mentality that even when we were into natural medicine, we just were raised on,
quick fixes.
Yeah, well, they didn't have pill commercials when I was a kid, but they've had them for a while now. And, it's just, you just get the impression that, that's the way to fix things. And if something's hard, you can always opt out and do the easier one pill. One pill
a day, and in the background, the nice music while they play the side effects.
Yeah. I'm speaking, when you talked about getting an antidepressant, when I was postpartum and having a hard time, I went to the OBGYN and just kind of, feeling sorry for myself and saying, how hard things were. She said, well, do you want an antidepressant? And I was like, I was stunned, first of all, because I didn't think, it was the first time someone had offered me something so quickly. And then, even with all my background, working full time, running a natural medicine clinic, there was like a piece of me that was like, well, maybe I need it. She's the authority. I'm the patient, just for that. You're just in that dynamic, right? And it, and in your case, it was very helpful for a long time, but I don't think it's what I needed in my
No, and it was helpful, but I was a zombie, and those years weren't like, they weren't happy. They might have been migraine free, but I was not. It's nothing like what I feel now. And I think with the medication, there was a lot of times when I was on this journey that I was like, oh, you should just take the medication, just end the pain, even for a little bit. And those thoughts go through your head. You're just like, I just want out. It's hard. It is hard to heal. And not everybody is wanting to do that. They think like, this is where they are, this is where they want to be, and it's a straight line. It's not. It's like up and down and all around. And we have to be really patient with the body. And even it is frustrating when the clients retest and there still is something in their gut. But at the same time, normally with my clients, I try to teach them that, okay, yes, we are looking at test results, but we're also going by how you feel. So you can feel a lot better and still have a pathogen in your gut and still be feeling really good. Yeah, we want to get rid of that pathogen, but we might just take a little break right now, because all the other work that we've done to support your body, a lot of your symptoms are gone. Look at, okay, what have you accomplished? Where did you start off with? Let's see how much better you feel now, and realize, okay, this is not a 6-month journey or a 1-year journey. This is a however long it takes journey. And we have to give the body that time to do what it feels is right. Because as much as, our main symptom might be, for me, for a while, it was my bladder. I wanted my bladder fixed. Like, it was excruciating. that wasn't what my body thought was important, right? So, your body will choose what it heals when you give it the resources. You don't get to pick.
Yeah, and that's why we going back to the diet and the detoxing that you did in the beginning, and just the educating or listening to podcasts. Sometimes it feels like you're not moving as fast as you want, but in a sense, it's really important because it's laying the groundwork of willingness. I love the name of your website, Motivated to Heal. Like, you can't go from just like shopping at Costco and like using Pantene and just a super conventional life to dropping into like a serious FDN program where you're like, I don't think that happened. Maybe it's never happened in my practice. Maybe it's happened for you. I think there
no
education. Yeah. Like, okay, this is a concept that I'm buying into, that I've had this programming from TV and advertisements for so long, but I'm reprogramming to think that there's another way to do things. And that reprogramming takes a while.
It does.
Where you're ready to say, okay, yeah, I'm willing to work on my gut for an entire year, which is not something most people do.
No, or heavy metals for 2 or 3 years, right? Like, that's how long, if you want to do it safely, it can take that long.
Yeah.
Then there's the people who are, well, I'm just going to go get on some chelation and I will be heavy metal free and this long, right? To me, anything that we should do from my own journey should be slow. If you rush it, you're going to take a lot of step backwards.
Yeah.
Give it some time, then you're going to progress a lot. It will be quicker in the long run because you won't be taking all those steps backwards.
Yeah. So I want to just ask you a couple more things that we've mentioned briefly just in case people are like, what was that? And then we'll get into your resources. So you mentioned oxalates, and we have had another episode on that we can link to. But
with Lisa Pomeroy.
Yeah. So tell us about, how did you test those? What did you find? Did you think they affected your interstitials? That's a hard word to say.
It is.
Because there could be other women listening who have the interstitial arthritis, and I'd love to hear you give them a few more things to think about.
Yeah, definitely run an oats test from Great Plains. Don't do the Genova one because it doesn't test the oxalate levels. So you run the test through Great Plains and it will show your oxalate levels. And definitely, I think a lot of people with IC, a lot of people develop IC after they give up dairy, because the calcium in the dairy was binding to any oxalates that they were eating. So it wasn't a problem. And I think that was a big thing. Besides, I think the hormones, me lowering my estrogen, which is going to decrease your bladder lining, and then at the same time increasing all of my plant intake, which is going to increase the oxalate levels, quitting dairy, which is going to decrease my calcium. And all of a sudden, these oxalates have a much easier time to destroy my bladder. And definitely run the test to see. If you're not in an active dumping phase, you might not see it. So it's better to test when you're in an active flare. And that way you can see, is it an oxalate issue? It's not always. IC is so multifaceted. It can be a hormonal issue. It could be a histamine issue. It could be the oxalate issue. It could be a nerve issue with the vagus nerve. It also could be emotional trauma. And for me, I was able to make a lot of really good progress with my bladder, but it was not back to normal. And I always said, well, I had ulcers. It's probably going to be like this forever just because of the damage that was done to the bladder. I might have a little bit extra frequency or some sensations every once in a while. So I kind of just pushed it away. And it wasn't until I got into the mindset training and emotional healing that I realized that the events from my past and some things that I was not letting go of or allowing in my life was really contributing to what was going on in my body. And even though I'd made all this progress with my health, doing this last work and push for the past 10 months, really focusing on emotional healing, mindset, the laws of attraction, I've made huge leaps and bounds even further that I never thought was possible.
I really like that you brought that up. Yeah. And we have a couple other episodes I can tell people to go to. I had Joe Tata on about pain. And that was a really great eye-opener. His book for me in the episode is to like how we perceive our disease and our pain, as you talked about earlier, is huge. You know, there's what's happening, and then there's how we're reacting to it. And then Nikki Graytrix was on talking about what's the word? Childhood traumas. It can be other traumas too, but childhood traumas can really dig in and affect us for a long, long time. So I'm glad you brought that up. So there's lots of reasons for interstitial cystitis that people can look at. Okay. And on your site, do you have any blogs about this, or if people want to kind of know more about your approach, how can they?
So on my website, www.motivatedtoheal.com, you can put in 2 or the number 2, whichever one. And if you go under free training, I do have a training series that I did on why I feel that, you know, elimination diets are not enough, that it takes so much more to heal. I've actually done a complete workbook on all the steps that I've taken to heal, going over neurotransmitters, sex hormones, what testing you need to do along with it, and just to like lay out the whole body approach instead of people just coming and focusing on one thing. And then I talk about mindset. And on my website, I've also got a link to basically all the free training that I've ever done ones on SIBO and disidentification meditations, just kind of pulling everything all in, because it really is. There's so much involved in healing.
Okay, great. Well, those are great free resources. Again, motivatedtoheal.com. And we always have these linked in the show notes and the blog notes. It's at bridgetdanner.com. And then you just go to the blog, which is the blog will host the audio and the video. And we're just starting to put these on YouTube, which I told you I've done on and off over the years, kind of like the extra step and the extra bandwidth it takes to get a video recorded can be a challenge, but this one will be on the YouTube channel. Yeah. So we'll share that as well. Or if you're already subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can hear it. Yeah. We talked before the show. Some people just prefer having the video on. Oh, they want to see your face or something.
And the green background that we couldn't quite figure out.
Yeah. So if you do prefer that, or you want to see the other videos that we have up there, I have some cooking videos and stuff. You can go to our YouTube channel, linked in the show notes and at bridgetdanner.com. Well, Sandie, this was a really great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love it. Loved it.
Great. Let's keep in touch.
Yes.